the co-founder. Now I'm the sole owner of the nail salon. I bought out my business partner during COVID. But I did found it with a very close friend who we always wanted to go into business together and always kind of dreamt up of owning our own thing. I used to work in communications, and I started off my career as a journalist, actually, which is also good training for owning a business, just because you're sort of jack of many trades and master of none. In 2014, I was working a very corporate job. I was living out in Seattle, and I thought, I really want to do something different. And I wasn't sure what that was going to be. You know, my former business partner and I, we had thought up of, you know, maybe we'll do a food. We used to call it a food cart, and this is before the food truck craze kind of came. And I was getting my nails done in a pretty much a sort of a corner mom and pop nail salon out in Seattle, and talking to this friend about you know, what would make this experience better, and kind of laughing and joking about, you know, I'm probably going to get polio from these tools because they're so dirty, and I'm probably going to, you know, get an infection, and it's so loud, and I wish it were quieter, and I wish there was nicer music playing, and I wish people weren't eating, and, you know, technicians eating dinner and doing somebody's toes. And it was all a little bit chaotic, and we were kind of joking and laughing. But in kind of talking about what a perfect experience, how we might perfect this experience, we said, well, let's open up a nail salon that's like a luxury nail salon that allows people to go in and have a really nice, sort of clean, mindful experience. And let's, you know, make it a place where people come to socialize. So let's serve beverages, and not just alcoholic beverages, which we serve, but also lots of teas and coffees and hot chocolates and juices and soda and other things that anybody can drink, and flavored water and all the gamut. And let's, you know, make it really kind of a place where people can take a beat and have it a special moment of self-care. So within 3 weeks of that conversation, I still had my polish on from the experience. I had quit my job, moved across country, packed up my house, put it on the market for sale. And I landed here, and where I had kind of grown up. I'm originally from Brazil, actually, but I was born in Brazil, and for the first sort of quarter of my life, I lived in Brazil, and my father was transferred here for his work, and I ended up growing up here. And you know, so this was kind of home, and I thought, okay, let's do it. And I had no idea what opening a business entailed. And I think if I knew what opening a business entailed, I probably wouldn't have opened a business. It was almost like by the time I realized what I'd gotten myself into, it was too late to turn around. And so I just kept going. And here we are. It's been 8 years. And we basically, you know, we have 2 locations with a few more on the way, in the next year and a half. And it's just a really exciting time for the nail salon, because our receptivity in Washington has been great. I mean, people have taken to us. They're very loyal to us. We pride ourselves in sort of 3 values, company values, which are excellence, kindness, and generosity. And we try to infuse that in everything we do. And so, yeah, it's been an exciting journey, but as you can all imagine, and all of you know this, there's no free lunch anywhere. There's certainly no free lunch in opening a business. And it's been a ride of, you know, that's been both very exciting and also frustrating at times. And there's been sleepless nights, and there's been, you know, moments of just anger and frustration and things not working, and lots of learning, and lots of sort of, I think, becoming a better person, because you just learn to manage so many different sort of incoming things that maybe I wouldn't be exposed to if I didn't have a business. So I had a house in Seattle that I had, you know, bought a few years prior when I moved there, which didn't have tons of equity in it, but I sold it. I cashed out my 401k. I got into every credit card. You know, I maxed out every credit card to literally, I remember once I had a flood in my house, and I had to replace the floors. And I remember going to the to the flooring place, and I had to pay something like, you know, $6,000 for floors. And I said, just for a portion of my living room. I remember being like, okay, This one here, $100. This one here, $300. Let's try 350, you know. I sold everything I had. I went into pretty serious debt on credit cards. I took on, when I moved back from Seattle, I retained a freelance contract where I had been working, and I took on another job and then another job. And then, I mean, I worked full time while I opened my business for a very long time. This was not something that I just said. I didn't have, you know, a trust fund or just even a big savings account that I had. So it was kind of like, I was really scrappy about it. And I sold my car. I remember I love cars, and I drove a really nice car, and I went into the CarMax and I said, what is the cheapest car you have in the lot? And all of a sudden I'm driving this beat up little car that, you know, even if I wanted to be an Uber driver, they wouldn't let me be an Uber driver with a car that I had, because it was so old. I mean, it was so old, and it was, you know, it was, anyway, but all worth it, right? You kind of say, okay, I'm going all in. I'm going to double down on this dream, and what's it going to take, right? So, I mean, I feel like that's the story of a lot of entrepreneurs, that you just kind of don't really take no for an answer, and you just say, okay, you know what, I'm going to have I'm going to need to come up with this much money in the next 3 months. Then how am I going to do it? And then you just find a way. I mean, it was not my favorite time of my life, but it passes, as most things do. We saw a place in DuPont Circle. We thought, that's kind of cool. DuPont's a pretty busy part of town, and lots of foot traffic, and this looks like a good space. And so we called the name of the guy that was on the whose name was on the window, and he didn't give us the time of day. He didn't call us back, and we called him again, and he didn't call us back, and we called him again, to the point that we called him so many times, and we would also start saying things to him like, if you don't call us back by tomorrow, we're going to call you back again. And so we kind of let him know that we weren't giving up. And he finally, one day, he was like, I surrender. I'll meet you. Like, I will meet you to show you a space. And so he met with us for a coffee, and he's like, you're so persistent. And we're like, we just needed to talk to you. And he's a very sweet man, and we've treated him and his mom to pedicures at the Nail Saloon since. And he lives in Europe now. He doesn't even live in the area anymore, but he told us, he said, you know, look, this isn't a good space for you guys. It's too big. And so he started showing us some other spaces. And when we first went to our first location, which was in Logan Circle, we walked in and we just thought, you know, not very scientific. We thought, this is it. We feel it. We feel it. This is it. So we said, let's lease it. And we had no idea what that entailed, right? So we had to build it from scratch and find, you know, architects and find contractors. I mean, talk about being green. I mean, I think the good thing about, you know, I think opening a business is an exercise in learning what it's like to open up a business. I mean, you really don't know what you don't know. But then you start learning, and like anything, you just read I mean, I can't imagine what it would have been like to open up a business before Google, to be perfectly honest, or before the internet. I just cannot imagine what that would have been like. But nowadays, I think there are a lot of resources out there. The city, DC, has resources. We joined anything that anybody was offering in terms of the city for entrepreneurs, for the Women's Business Center, for Minority Business Center, the legal clinics for business owners. We went to everything in the beginning. We were like, free advice, we'll take it. You know, and also I found that people were very friendly. You know, we reached out to people in other cities who own nail salons, and they were really nice to us, and they talked to us about their experiences. I mean, it's kind of funny. I think humans like to talk about themselves, you know? And so when you ask somebody, can I just talk to you about what it's like to be you? People are usually open to it. So we learned quite a bit and nowadays I give advice to people who are opening a nail salon 2 streets down from me. And I still talk to them because I feel like I was helped a lot when I was opening this business. And even though I'm kind of training my competition, I think it's fair game. There's room for all of us, you know? So that's how I found my space, is through sheer just, you know, now I know better, and I know how to look for a space in a different way. But we kept hearing about people and watching, you know, oh, this sandwich shop open, and then they opened a second one after 1.5 years. And, you know, we were always kind of watching and learning and trying to understand sort of the rhythms and when the right time to strike is. But the opening the second one was quite scary, because we were always like, what if it goes under? What if the first one is just a fluke? What if the first one worked just because of the location? And so we were invited by Yelp, Yelp that does the reviews, the site that does
Yeah.
reviews. We were invited by Yelp to come out it was actually a very surreal experience, because when you're a business owner, you never usually get a call about something. All the calls you get are usually problems to solve. And they called us out of nowhere, and they said, you've been selected as a model business in the US for how you use Yelp and how you engage your customers on the site. And we respond to every single review. I mean, I respond to every single review, and I have since day one of opening this business. I've responded to more than 30,000 reviews in my, not just on Yelp, and internally, we have an internal system. I respond to every single review, good, bad, or in between. And if it's anything other than perfect, I follow up one-on-one with the team member that is involved in the review. If it's just a great 5 out of 5 star, I send the congrats to the team member and make it public for all of our employees to see. But so yeah, Yelp was thought it was cool that we were a nail salon and we responded to everything. So they invited us over, and when we got to this conference, it was the 50 model businesses from across the US, or rather 100. And we got there and we were just talking to everybody, and everybody had like 3 and 4 and 5 and 7. And I'm like, we have to just, so from San Francisco, from the Yelp headquarters, we called Michael, who was the guy that, our real estate broker for the first one, who had told us we were so persistent. And we told him we wanted to rent our second space. And we just went from there to try to sort out what that would look like. And it was about 3 years in from the first location. So we opened about 4 years after the first one. By the time everything was, permits and location. And so 4 years in, we opened the second one. Quite a ride. And now we're getting ready to do a pretty big expansion. Since I took over the business last year, or rather a year and a half ago, during the pandemic, I think the pandemic, I imagine many of you will relate. The pandemic was a little bit of like the great accelerator, right? Like a lot of people kind of took a beat to reevaluate their life and what they wanted to do, and kind of if things were working for them and what was and we definitely, my former business partner and I definitely took some time to do that. And, we kind of decided, we talked a lot about what each of us wanted for this business and for our own lives. And she has 2 little kids. And so we kind of landed on one of us would buy it off the other one, and that one would be me. And I would run it and she was going to focus more on other things in her life. And so, once I took it over by myself, it was, I got sort of a second surge of creativity and of like, okay, now that this is all on my shoulders, what's this going to look like? And what's my vision for this business? And I think making the decision to expand pretty aggressively was even easier, I think, than when I just had one, I think, which wasn't, look, a year in, it's not terrible. It's not, I know people start paying themselves sooner before that, but we were conservative and we wanted to have a little bit of money in the bank before we started paying ourselves. And we both had full-time jobs while we had this business. So my day looked like, I would wake up, I'd go open up the shop, and I would work from, 8:30 to about 12:30. And then I'd go to my full-time job from about 1 to 9. And then I would, either connect back with my business partner about the business or do things that I hadn't gotten to do that day. And then weekends I worked at the shop. It was a slog. A lot of people come up to you and say, oh, I've always wanted to open up a wine shop, a bed and breakfast, a bookstore, they're always full of ideas. And I always say, I don't mean this in a disparaging way. The idea is essential, but the idea is not the most important thing. The idea is not, it's execution, right? And so
passion.
And also grit, and just like and look, this group here, I don't need to talk to you guys about grit. I think anybody who's a vet understands what it means to pick up and start over and pick up, and when you fall down and be knocked and face really difficult things, right? But I do think that it's a game of execution. A lot of people have analysis paralysis. They write the business plan for the 30th time. And it's like, at some point you just have to start. You just have to start, because what you're going to learn about owning a business is so different than what you're writing about in your business plan. Once you're in motion, it's like a whole different game.